So I had the opportunity very recently to go to a Gears of War Judgment event. And at the outset, I must say, it's really cool to go to a game preview event and the game is there. Even better that they give you a chance to play it. But given the fact that we are so close to the launch of Gears of War Judgment, had it not been playable, I would have found that a little bit on the suspicious side. So we got a smattering of single player, of multiplayer, both co-op and competitive. So the big news that came out of this is the existence of something called Gears of War Aftermath. This is another single-player campaign that is unlocked by achieving points and stars in Gears of War Judgment. Judgment is a prequel. It takes place after the events of Immersion's Day. That's when the Locusts come out of the hole and they attack everybody. If you earn 40 stars, and this is through various scorings, not just at the end of a level, but sort of sections within a level, you hit these 40 stars, which I was told is a relatively easy feat. You unlock Aftermath, which is kind of a side campaign that takes place inside of Gears of War 3. So, Judgment is interesting just in its narrative structure. It looks like it's a 4-part game, and it takes place during a tribunal right after Immersion's Day, to the point where like the Locusts are outside the door of the room, where it looks like some kind of crazy higher up in the military of the COG is trying 4 characters. There's Baird, and there's Coltrane, and there's 2 new characters. And they're being grilled as to something that happened when they went rogue right after Immersion's Day. And each person tells their story, and then sort of in a flashback, you play through those events. As a narrative structure, it's interesting, and the way it seemed to play out in the game during the level that I played called Onyx Tower, this is a fair ways into the game and definitely presented some challenge. You're stopping down far less in the game to get the narrative than you do in a traditional Gears game. And it gives it a sense of sort of propulsion and speed, but at the same time, I don't know how collectively, when you play all of it together, if you're gonna get the same kind of narrative satisfaction that you would out of a more traditional Gears game. Now, having said that, I was quite struck by the gameplay. It's faster than what you tend to get in Gears. Some very slight tweaks that they made to the control scheme, which is weapon swapping on the Y. Thank you. I was tired of doing it on the D-pad. And grenades off of the left bumper, which also you originally had to use the D-pad for. And that used to restrict how I would play Gears in the other 3 games. You would try to just kind of sit with the one weapon, and only when it was safe you would swap out or try to throw a grenade. This really opens up the gameplay to be a lot faster, a lot quicker. What weapons I chose to actually stock myself with really did change. I used to do one of the more esoteric weapons like the torque bow. Here you can have 2 guns or a shotgun and a Lancer. I found myself using the levels a lot more than I did in the past. I think the AI was a lot more aggressive, and overall, I found it quite satisfying. From what I understood at the event, it's not like you're getting 2 10-hour Gears games back to back. Collectively, I think you're getting a package that's more comparable to what you get out of a traditional Gears single-player game. The scoring system in Gears of War Judgment is interesting in that it offers replayability. It was very, very evident. And then there's an additional mode called Declassified Mode. So at the beginning of all these sections in the single-player game, you can select that, and it gives that section of game with something that's been enhanced. It might affect your visibility, or you might get tougher enemies, ones that are emulsified and like to blow up. They definitely are looking at, they're only giving you a little game, but they want to give you reason to go back and play it over again. Given the fact that I like the controls, there's something that feels quite appealing about that, though it still makes me wonder if this is at the expense of narrative coherence. I think what I had a lot of fun with was survival mode. This is kind of the evolution of Horde and Beast mode, where you're playing with other COG soldiers. It was, I believe, we had 6 players playing at the same time. The waves are coming in, but you're moving across a map. When you lose, like you're trying to hold an emergence hole, when you lose that, you then move on to another section of the map, and you try to hold that down. And if you can survive the 10 waves while moving through the map, well, you win as a team. I think you can also adjust how many waves you're trying to endure. I found this to actually be a little bit more compelling than Horde and Beast, just because there was a sense of change and a sense of difference. It was the map sizes, they were smallish, but I think it really helped kind of keep you focused on where your teammates are and how you have to work together. Working together became very, very important in the later parts of the waves. The 4 class systems, which are going to be very familiar to anyone, were diverse enough that when you died and you had to sort of swap into a new one, you really understood where you needed to put your focus during certain points of the game. The biggest issue I had is the only way to swap out was by dying. And soldiers, which were definitely the strongest class in terms of how they're armed, could survive for so long that ever so often you would find that everything got a little bit imbalanced and there was no way to kind of go back out and try to rebalance all your classes so as to make it more effective in getting through the waves. Gears of War Judgment is an interesting package. Here you have 2 kind of, let's call them short story single player games. You have Survival, your co-op mode, and then you have Overrun, which is kind of their signature competitive multiplayer mode where you play both Beast and COG. That sounds like a pretty comprehensive package, but there was that part of me that couldn't tell how elliptical this is going to feel, that you're only getting a smattering of a little bit rather than kind of a large serving of one big chunk of game. That's something that I can only figure out by playing the whole game, and thankfully I think that's going to be happening very soon as the game is coming out at the end of March. So stay tuned here for more news on the 4th of the Gears of War games.